Hey, it's Jeff Sauer here from Jeffalytics.com and analyticscourse.net, and I want to share with you some thoughts about channel groupings in Google Analytics. Now, questions come in from our students all the time about how do we best use Google Analytics, and we answer them pretty extensively in our Analytics course forums. And some of the best questions that we get that we find don't have great answers on the internet, we have decided to turn them into videos here on our 90-day challenge for the Jeffalytics website. And so this one is a question that comes up all the time, and it has to do with channel groupings in Google Analytics. Now, channel groupings are something where most people just trust the defaults. They look at what Google provides them, and then they assume that that's what they should be caring about. They assume that's what's interesting for their company. They assume that Google's one-size-fits-all way of showing people dashboards is the right way to go. And to be honest, it's not. And I think there's many ways that you can improve upon the channel groupings that are shown in Google Analytics. Either you skip past the channel groupings altogether and you go into your source medium report, or you create some customized channel groupings that will really help you do better with your analytics. And so in this video, we are going to show you how you can access channel grouping data, how you can make it better and more useful to you and your organization, and just overall tips about the way to maximize the usage of channels that you have in Google Analytics. So watch on to have your mind blown with information about channel groupings in Google Analytics.
And now we're going to get into channel groupings that you have in Google Analytics. But first, I wanted to start with a little rant. And that is, you should never trust the default settings in any system you use, but particularly, you probably don't want to trust them in Google Analytics. And the reason why is because Google Analytics is an amazing tool, but it's also a one-size-fits-all tool, meaning that it is meant to be used by every single person who has any website out there. And because there's so many different types of websites out there, the chances of them matching your needs exactly are very, very slim. Let's think about it. If Google Analytics is on 87% of all the websites out there, and those websites are informational, where you can look up information about something, if they're nonprofits, if they're blogs, if they're e-commerce stores, if they're lead generation websites, even if they're a spam site that's out there just to get links for SEO, those are all different potential uses of a website. And every single one of those types of websites is measured by something differently. Not only are they measured by something differently, they have completely different objectives for what makes them successful. In some cases, being successful is just having somebody visit your site. In other cases, it's having somebody purchase from you. And in more cases than not, nobody even knows what success is. And that's why when people set up Google Analytics, they probably don't even put up goals. They don't do any of the fundamental things that tell Google Analytics what makes them successful. And so I don't want you to do that. I don't want you to trust the defaults and to just be average. I don't want you to be generic. I want you to do more than that. And that's what this is all about, is channel groupings and grouping things together differently. Now, the other thing is the defaults, they take into account all traffic sources as if they're all the same, as if everybody has the same traffic pattern, as if they get people coming to their site in the same ways. But as you can probably imagine, everybody gets traffic in so many different ways to their website. You could get traffic because you left a comment on somebody's blog, or you could get traffic because you pay for it, or you do a lot of inbound marketing techniques that bring people into your website through links or through different promotions. You could be really heavy on social media. You could have a very extensive network of catalogs that you send out to people's homes, and then those home catalogs have links to your website on them. There's a million different ways you can have somebody go to your website, and yet everybody has the same defaults. We treat everything the exact same. You should never trust the defaults, and not only that, you should improve upon them. So when we go into Google Analytics and we look at defaults, they tell us a very simplistic picture. And in many ways, that picture is telling us that Google is the center of the world, at least in the case of this website, which happens to be traffic for Jeffalytics over a certain time period. You can see here that organic search is everything for us. It's over 70%, and then everything else just sort of trickles down and isn't really that meaningful at all. And it basically indicates that all that you should pay attention to is organic search. Everything else doesn't really matter that much. Well, is that true or not? And the other thing that I notice in here as an analyst is that organic search is a dangerously high percentage here, meaning that we can't really get any insights out of what's in organic search. It's treating everything the same. It's not really giving us any details as to what type of terms people typed in on organic search. Were they searching for the word Jeffalytics, or were they searching for something around Google Analytics or PPC, all the different things we talk about? None of that shows up in here, and the reason why is because these are the defaults. And so I can't answer any of the business questions that I have when I look at this, other than the fact that it tells me I get a disproportionate number of people who come in through organic search, and organic search is strongly contributing to how many goals that I end up having completed on my website. Okay, that's nice to know. That's cool. It's all good, right? But it's not the best way to do things. It's not optimal, and we want to make things optimal. Now, why is it not optimal? Because it's a default. Now, before you read too much into this and you think that I'm saying bad things about Google, what I'm going to tell you is that their default channels are very well thought out. They're brilliant, actually. I don't think I would do it any differently myself. They match almost everything up to a very high degree of accuracy. If you just have the default channel settings on almost any Google Analytics account you look at, they're going to have everything mapped out. They're going to know what types of traffic there is. They're going to have everything from organic search down to paid media. They're going to know the different paid media types. They basically do a great job with the defaults. But it's still a default, and I put that in all caps because I'm yelling this to the heavens and letting every single person know that these are still defaults. So even if they do a good job, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing your job, which is not trusting the defaults. You can really improve your channel groupings. You really can improve them and make them so much better. And that's really the point of this video. And not only that, but I also teach you how to do this inside of Analytics course. And today's video is really coming from a question that one of our course members named Fred had when he said, "Can you tell me how you arrived at your channel groupings for Jeffalytics?" Now, I show these inside of Analytics course. I go really in depth in how you can configure them, and I show everything about channel groupings in Google Analytics. But I still get a lot of questions about it, and I thought it would be a great idea to create a video just showing you a little bit more about channel groupings in Google Analytics. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into Google Analytics, and I'm going to show you how I set up my channel groupings in Jeffalytics and just give you a little bit more detail behind why I do what I do. Okay, so here we are inside of Google Analytics, and this is the Jeffalytics account, and we're looking at our default channel grouping. This is the same screenshot we had earlier in this video. But if you look in here, we have the Jeffalytics content grouping. So I click on that, and this is where it gets fun. This is where it gets a little bit more colorful. And that is I've created 10 different groupings, and we are doing things like we're talking about organic search, but it's not just organic search now. Remember how we had 70% of organic search was just covering simply everything? It was saying any search that came in. Now we've broken it down into non-brand organic search for other content, non-brand organic search for Google Analytics topic, and then we have non-branded search for paid search content. Basically, one of those three buckets determines how people are coming into the site from a non-branded search. And then also up here, we have WordPress-based content. And so we've taken the organic search, instead of being 70%, we've given it 4 different segments here, and we are able to break down what they are. And not only that, we have one called branded organic search as well. And so we're able to get pretty far into this and really make a determination as to what type of search traffic we're getting. We're not looking at the defaults anymore. We're digging deeper. Notice other things in here. Email stays the same, but we have one up here called the darkness. The darkness is my term that I give affectionately, well, not so affectionately, even for direct traffic, because direct traffic sucks. Direct traffic is something that we think is a channel, but really it just means there's nothing. There's a void. There's darkness, infinite darkness. We can't see anything because of how poorly this traffic is performing. We have stuff like organic social. If I started to do more paid social advertising to Jeffalytics, then we would see that show up here as well. We have referrals, which are the default channel for referrals, but then we have things like earned media, which fills in the details for our referrals. And this just gives us a little bit more color. We can see what topics are really bringing in those leads. It's still non-brand organic search, and it's still the majority is these other content, but now we can at least see what's happening here. And not only that, if we wanted to, we could drill down and we can see which search engine's driving. As you can see here, mostly Google, but then we can look at the landing page and we can see how do we further improve this grouping. Notice here that we have an AdWords article that's not showing up in the PPC, it's showing up in the other group. We have something about digital marketing and getting goals, raw data. We have stuff that's actually about analytics that's showing up in our other thing as well. And so what I'm noticing here is that there's some opportunities for us to continue to improve our process. And so what I want to do is I want to dig into these channel groupings and show you how they're done and just give you some ideas for how you can make your own channel groupings in Google Analytics. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the admin section and look at our channel settings, and I'm going to manage my groupings for Jeffalytics. And here we are inside of the Jeffalytics content grouping that I just showed you. Now what it's doing is it's showing us all the different groups we've broken out. So the darkness, which is really just our direct traffic, it is simply giving us a new name for direct traffic. Branded organic search traffic, what it's doing is it's saying anything that's organic search traffic, and if the landing page matches exactly the homepage URL of Jeffalytics.com. Now you might ask yourself, why is that branded search traffic if it says Jeffalytics.com? I get this question all the time from people, and they say, how do you know that that's your brand name? I don't, but I trust that it's more accurate than other things that could go to my homepage. Let me tell you what I mean by that. If somebody's going to Jeffalytics.com on a search, 99% of the time it's when they're typing in Jeffalytics or they know who I am. They're typing in my name or something around the website. Because if they're coming in and they're doing a general query, they're going to end up on an article page that I wrote. Unless they typed in something like Google Analytics Consultant or something that happened to be in my title tag, then perhaps my homepage will rank. But for the most part, when things rank, they're sub-pages of my website. Now, I've gone through my analytics enough times. I've looked at my Search Console data. I've looked all around, and I can figure out that that's pretty much what's happening here, is that somebody is going in to the homepage if they're doing my brand name, and then they go to sub-pages or articles I wrote when they want to get deeper. And so fortunately, we have a lot of deep pages that are ranking well in search for Jeffalytics, but unfortunately, I don't know exactly to 100% confidence that this is the right number there. But you know what? I trust it and I go with it. Now, this is one of those questions where Fred's question came up, like, how do you know that this is branded organic search? How do you know with certainty that any of these things are real? I don't know. That's the answer. I don't know, but this is better than nothing. This is better than just assuming that everything is all the same. People are so afraid of being wrong in analytics. They're so afraid of having not perfect data. They're so afraid of having data that might contradict itself. But the reality is that if you're afraid of being wrong, you're going to be wrong anyway. Because guess what? None of this data is perfect. All this data is flawed. We're just doing the best we have with the data we have in front of us. And so that's exactly what I'm doing here. I'm doing the best that I have. And you know what? While people are fretting over whether or not they have the right data or whether it's perfect or not, I'm analyzing stuff. I'm taking action. I'm making things better. You know what? Perfect data will never exist. It's probably never going to happen. Even if the robots take over and even if they can read our freaking minds, there's never going to be perfect data. And that's the exception here. So what you do is you just guess. You make a better guess than you did the day before, but you keep on doing it because you don't want to have a lack of perfect data. You don't want to have a lack of perfect conditions be your excuse why you didn't produce, why you didn't get better results. Okay? So that's my rant. My rant's over now, but that's the reason why I don't freaking know, and you don't either. And you know what? I don't care. Leave a comment if you tell me that I have to have perfect data. That's fine. But guess what? You're never going to have perfect data. And not only that, but you're never going to have a perfect scenario where everything falls into line where you can even make that analysis. Because if you wait until everything's perfect, you won't have anybody going to your website because you wouldn't have written the content. You wouldn't have had people coming over to your website. Nobody would care because they'd be like, this person is so scared of making a mistake that they're not producing anything of value to us. There you go. I'm scared of making mistakes too, but I've gotten over it over the years, and I think you will too if you just keep on plugging away at what we do here. Now here's our non-branded organic search. Basically this one says any URL that contains Google Analytics is non-branded organic search for Google Analytics. That's a pretty easy one, and as you can see in here, there's tons of articles that meet that criteria. And so that's our one for Google Analytics. Now this one for PPC, paid search, notice how it has to have the word paid search in there. That is incomplete. I need to make this thing better. And the reason why is because it's saying landing page contains paid search, but we notice that Google AdWords didn't make it in there. So paid search is not enough because there's also PPC and there's also Google AdWords. So what we want to do here is we can add an or statement and we can say matches Google AdWords. And you notice there's a lot more Google AdWords coming in there now. Or it matches PPC. And notice how there's a ton of PPC stuff that comes in here as well. So if we click on that and then we finish it, when Google has a chance to process this data, our paid search segment just got better. I can do the same with my WordPress. And then ultimately, my other one, it's basically just a catch-all. It's saying anything that shows up at Jeffalytics and does not contain WordPress, does not contain Google Analytics. Basically, it's everything else that we put in there is what shows up in this one. And this is a waterfall. So what happens is that when somebody comes in, if they are a direct visitor, then they don't go any further. They just stay in this bucket, and that's it. If they don't have a direct as a medium, yet they have branded organic search, if they fit this criteria, then they just stop here. So they go through all these different buckets and keep on going until we get to the point where we're at other. And so that's how you know that you've done this properly, is because if you have no people that are sitting in other, or very few that are sitting in other, then that means that these definitions are correct. Now notice we've changed some other things here too. These things have changed quite a bit. We have organic social, and this is basically saying any organic social that comes from things like Buffer, StumbleUpon, RSS, and Feedly. Now these are things, basically it means that these are our earned media channels through social. Buffer, it's when we send out our own tweets. StumbleUpon is a network that we submitted to. RSS is when it's our RSS feed, and Feedly is what comes in from feedly.com, which is an RSS reader. Now those are things that we basically drive to our own site. And you can just keep on adding to these things. You can just keep on adding different channels and then seeing what works. And then you can save your data. And if you see up here, it says it can take up to 24 hours for the changes to take effect in your account. And so that means that at some point in time, these things are going to show up and you can look at your groupings for channels, and things are going to be showing exactly how you want them to see. So this is something where you can keep on making improvements, and you can keep on making adjustments, and you can get better at your channel groupings. Now tell me this, isn't this a lot more fun to have these channel groupings than it is to have the boring ones? The ones that are eating up and clogging up your entire ability to analyze because they're lumping everything together where it doesn't belong. This is way more fun, way more enjoyable, and I hope that you enjoy it as well. And this stuff works fast, so I just went back and clicked back over to here and notice how much the paid search content has risen because of this update. I made an update, it's already risen, and now paid search content is getting its full due. It's way above the WordPress content where it was before, and we added 1,000 new visits just because we had proper classification. And that's the power of playing with your channel groupings. You can make adjustments, you can change things, and then you can get almost immediate results taking a look at this data. It's pretty cool, isn't it? And so that's exactly how I like to look at these channel groupings, make them a lot less boring, keep on improving things. You can look at your earned media bucket. You can see which referrals belong in there. You can do all kinds of cool stuff when you drill down. So you can look at your referrals and you can see where people are coming in from, and then you can keep on adding those to your list of things that are in there. I notice that I'm getting links from all kinds of cool places that I didn't even know that I had links from, because now I'm drilling down into my sources. And these things, I can use them as a way to just continue to make improvements. I can reach out to these people, all kinds of cool stuff you can do once you recognize that these things are happening. And that's how I look at channel groupings. That's how I make them better. And hopefully you can make them better for yourself just by following what we have in this demo. Didn't take long to do it, just a couple minutes, just the length of this video, and you can make improvements immediately, and then you'll see it right in your account. So let's get better, right? Let's get much better, and let's do it starting now. Well, I hope you enjoyed that look at how you can improve your channel groupings and how you can be a lot less boring next time you log into your Google Analytics account. And here's some tips for how you can improve your channel groupings, some things that might not be obvious to you, but they really do work out if you give them a try. Number one, aim for more smaller segments. So instead of going after something that shows 70% of your traffic goes into one bucket, try to get into a sweet spot somewhere around 10% to 20% for the different segments you have, and try to get a bunch of them, and that way you can have some kind of meaningful segment you can look at. Now you don't want to have them too small because it's just too little data. It's not statistically significant to be able to draw conclusions from it, but you don't want it to be too big either because it's equally hard to draw any conclusions. 2, call out your direct traffic. Call it what it is. It's not pretty. It's not the greatest. It's just stuff that we don't know what it is. We don't know what it is. So give it a funny name, give it a negative name, and that way you'll make better decisions when it comes to tagging your traffic, and you make sure that the traffic you have coming in is accountable. Number 3, classify as you feel comfortable. You can start out by just taking your default settings, changing one thing, and then just seeing what it looks like in your reports. And then maybe you get confident. You say, okay, I'm going to do a second one, or I'm going to do a third one, I'm going to do a 10th one. You don't have to do it all right away. You can pretty much see results in real time. Sometimes it takes the 24 hours that Google says, but most of the time it happens in real time. So just do it as you feel comfortable. Number 4, leave the defaults intact. So start with a copy of the defaults whenever you do something. Leave the defaults there because you don't want to lose them, and they are pretty well thought up by Google and they're widely accepted by other people. It's just that once you move past the defaults, then you can look at your own classifications and you can use those as your main analysis tool. Number 5 is if you don't like channel groupings, just use the source medium report more often. I love the source medium report because it really does get at the meat of what's happening. What is the source and what is the medium? And of course, we know what a source is, at least people who have taken analytics course. We know that the source is who sent you the traffic, the source of the traffic, and the medium is the channel they delivered it to you. Source, medium, report, who and how. Pretty awesome when you have that data together. Channel groupings, they oversimplify it. They just tell you the how. They don't tell you the who. And there's a lot to be learned from monitoring the who. So do you use channel groupings? And what's your favorite use for it? I would love it if you could leave me a comment on this YouTube video or on the blog post that accompanies it. I would love to hear your thoughts on channel groupings. Have you come up with some cool groupings? Have you come up with some funny stuff that you are proud of that you want to share? Maybe we'll feature it in a future video here at Analytics Course, or maybe I'll just give you a pat on the back for doing a good job and listening to me all along. And if you like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/c/Jeffalytics, and you will get notified all the time whenever we have these new videos coming out. Now, this is part of a 90-day challenge, 90 videos in 90 days. We're pretty early in the challenge, so if you subscribe to the channel, you're going to get so much knowledge that you are going to be an expert at pretty much everything. Now, that's probably overpromising, but you are going to be like the smartest person that I know because you're going to be watching all this stuff. It's been really fun creating all these videos, and the momentum we get when people subscribe really makes us keep on going. So subscribe, be the first one to know when these things come out, and just be a good citizen. Just be a good steward of the data of analytics, and keep me ranting, keep me going, because this is awesome, and it's only awesome because of people like you. And while you're at it, join our free Google Analytics mini course at analyticscourse.net. Here you're going to learn some of my favorite tips and ideas around Google Analytics certification and learning about how I approach solving problems in analytics. And that's it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed this look at channel groupings in Google Analytics, and you really enjoyed my perspective as to why this is so important and why you don't want to ever trust the defaults. Okay, we'll talk to you soon.